The Young and the Restless spoilers shock. Noah's life was teetering on the edge of a cliff, and the cruel irony of it all was that neither Nick nor Sharon had any inkling of the impending disaster. For them, life in Genoa City was moving along, full of its own trials and tribulations, but their son was nowhere near their radar of concern. The truth, hidden deep in the shadows, would soon become a devastating revelation. As Noah's fate hung in the balance, all he could think about was how to escape the dangers that had suddenly cornered him. Noah had always been the dreamer, the wanderer, the one who never quite found a place to call home. His latest desire was to travel to Nice, hoping to reconnect with the world that had once been full of possibilities. In his heart, he believed that moving forward meant embracing the idea of family, of being surrounded by people who cared. No longer did he want to be a solitary figure, haunted by the ghosts of his past, most notably the haunting memories of his failed relationship with Ali. Their differences had become too vast, their ideals too divergent to overcome. What they had was no longer love, it was merely a series of misunderstandings and incompatible dreams. The love that had once bloomed so brightly had withered into something unrecognizable. And yet, Noah wasn't alone in his past. He carried with him the remnants of a life that once seemed full of promise. A life tied to Claire, the woman he once thought was his future. The two of them had shared moments of bliss, creating memories that were meant to last a lifetime. But as with many relationships, time had a way of distorting the truth, revealing things that had once been hidden beneath layers of passion and hope. In the midst of their love, a child had been conceived, a child who now held the key to Noah's deepening sense of dread. Noah had planned on taking his child to Nice, away from the confusion and turmoil of his life in Genoa City. But there was one problem: Claire was still very much a part of the equation. Though he had hoped to separate his life from hers, to finally sever the ties that bound him to her, fate had other plans. As Noah set his sights on a fresh start in the south of France, he could never have anticipated the storm that would soon tear apart his reality. Claire had secrets, and those secrets were about to resurface in ways that Noah had never imagined. It wasn't just the past that haunted Noah, it was the dangerous game Claire had been playing behind his back. The truth about her motives was far darker than he could have anticipated. She had been manipulating the situation, using the child as a pawn in a much larger scheme. And now, as Noah tried to move forward, he found himself trapped in a web of deceit and betrayal. Kyle, Claire's current partner, had no interest in Noah's past. To him, the only thing that mattered was the present, the life he was trying to build with Claire. Kyle's indifference was a slap in the face to Noah, who couldn't understand how Claire could move on so easily, leaving behind everything they had once shared. The child, their child, had become nothing more than a piece of collateral damage in the games Claire and Kyle were playing. It was infuriating to Noah, but the reality was clear. Claire had moved on, and Kyle had little to no regard for the past that had shaped Noah's life. As Noah made his way to Nice, hoping to carve out a peaceful life with his child, the world around him began to collapse. It wasn't just the emotional weight of his past that was closing in on him, it was something far more sinister. The shadows of danger were lurking closer than he realized, and the people responsible for his abduction were more than just figures from his past. They were orchestrators of a larger, more devious plan. The moments of joy Noah had shared with Claire and the child they had together now seemed like distant memories, tainted by the reality of what was happening. And as Noah's life hung by a thread, the question that lingered in the air was whether he could escape the forces that sought to trap him. Could he ever truly escape the dangers surrounding him, or would he be doomed to relive the same painful cycles of deceit and betrayal that had defined his past relationships? While Noah struggled with the weight of the choices he had made, and with the demons from his past that still clung to him like a shadow, Claire was playing a dangerous game. Her motivations were far murkier than Noah had ever realized, and the truth about her intentions would soon unravel in ways he couldn't have predicted. Her twisted connection with Kyle, her betrayal of Noah, and her willingness to use the child as a bargaining chip would soon surface, causing a chain reaction of consequences that would forever change the course of their lives. And yet, as the danger intensified, Noah found himself realizing something crucial. It was no longer just about him. It was about the child they shared, the future that was now at stake. The innocence of their child became the one thing that Noah would fight for with every ounce of his being. In the end, it wasn't just about escaping the past, it was about securing a future for the one person who had no part in the mess that had been created by his and Claire's mistakes. As the danger closed in, as his past collided with his present, and as the secrets began to unravel, Noah was left with a single choice. Would he succumb to the darkness that had threatened to consume him for so long, or would he fight for redemption, for a future with his child, and for the family he had always longed for? The answer, hidden in the depths of his soul, was just within reach, but would he survive long enough to make it? The danger, the manipulation, and the betrayal were all swirling together in a storm that threatened to engulf him. But in the face of it all, Noah was determined to find his way out. Whether he was ready or not, the truth about Claire, Kyle, and the forces manipulating them was about to be revealed in a way that would shatter everything Noah thought he knew about love, family, and the past that had been haunting him for far too long. And in the end, only one thing was certain: the battle for Noah's survival had only just begun. This narrative provides an in-depth exploration of Noah's situation, building on his relationship with Claire, the dangers closing in, and the secrets that drive the plot forward. It highlights emotional conflict, betrayal, and the powerful forces at play. Noah stood on the precipice of a decision that would alter the course of his life forever. The truth about Claire, a truth she had carefully hidden from him, was something he couldn't simply ignore. She had no idea that he was the son of Sharon and Nick, which meant she had no clue how deep the connection ran between them. To Claire, he was just another man in her past, Simeone she had loved, but someone who no longer mattered. But Noah knew better. He had always known. The games Claire had played, the manipulations, and the leash remembered them all too well. Their relationship had been one filled with passion, yes, but also deception and betrayal. Noah had tried to overlook the warning signs, the parts of Claire's character that didn't align with his own morals. But the truth was undeniable: Claire's nature was far darker than he had ever cared to admit. He had been blinded by his emotions, by the idea of a perfect life that didn't truly exist. The child they had together, the memories they had built, were all tainted by the realization of who Claire truly was. Now, as he faced the future, the weight of those past actions bore down on him like a heavy chain, pulling him back into a world he was desperate to escape. What Claire didn't know was that Noah understood her in ways no one else did. He knew her well, perhaps too well. Every move she made, every smile she gave, was calculated. Noah had seen her at her worst, and while he had once convinced himself that love could change her, he now realized that some people were simply incapable of change. Claire had never been the sweet, innocent woman she had tried to portray herself as. She had always been driven by ambition, by the desire to secure her own future, no matter the cost. Now, she was on the verge of marrying Kyle, a man who seemed to be the antithesis of everything Noah represented. Where Noah had once been a beacon of hope, of a life filled with emotional depth and raw honesty, Kyle was a man who lived in the present, someone who only cared about the here and now. Claire had found the perfect partner in him, Simeone who wouldn't ask questions, someone who would allow her to keep her secrets hidden away. And as she prepared for her new life, she was more than willing to erase Noah from the picture entirely. Claire, ever the manipulator, had one last card to play. She begged Noah to remain silent, to keep the past buried, to allow her to move on with her life without any further complications. She had begged him to let things go, to walk away from the past and never mention it again. She was determined to create a new life, a life that had no room for Noah's inconvenient truths. She pleaded with him, her voice trembling, desperate for him to understand. She wanted peace, a fresh start, and Noah's silence was the key to unlocking it. But Noah couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. His entire life had been shaped by secrets and least, first with his family, then with Claire. He had spent so many years trying to make sense of the chaos she had created, only to be left with more questions than answers. And now, she was asking him to let it all go, to let her continue living a life built on deceit. The very idea was repugnant to him. Noah knew what he had to do, but the question was, could he do it? Could he expose Claire for the person she truly was, even if it meant destroying everything she had worked so hard to build? He had always prided himself on his honesty, his integrity, but what would happen if he took that step? Would it be a righteous act of justice, or would he be just as bad as Claire in the end? The more Noah thought about it, the more complicated it became. His desire for truth clashed with his deep-seated need to protect his own future. He had a child to think about now, a life to rebuild. If he exposed Claire, would he be setting an example of courage and righteousness, or would he be making a decision that would haunt him forever? In the end, Noah had to face the harsh reality: Claire wasn't going to change. She wasn't going to suddenly become the woman he had hoped she would be. She was who she was, and if Noah was ever going to break free from the grip of his past, he would have to sever ties with her once and for all. But that didn't mean he had to remain silent about her. As the days passed and Claire's wedding plans moved forward, Noah's resolve solidified. He couldn't let her get away with this. The past needed to be exposed, not for revenge, but for closure. Noah knew that the truth could set him free, even if it meant destroying the only connection to the past he had left. It wasn't about vengeance, it was about breaking the chains that had bound him to Claire, to the life he no longer wanted. He wasn't going to let her manipulate him anymore. He wasn't going to let her dictate the narrative of his life. And as painful as it was, Noah knew he had to expose Claire for the woman she really was, no matter the cost. But even as he prepared to bring the truth to light, a part of him wondered if the truth was really all it seemed. What if exposing Claire didn't bring the peace he longed for? What if it only made things more complicated, more painful? He couldn't turn back now. The decision had been made. Noah would have to live with the consequences of his choice, just as Claire would have to face the fallout of her actions. The truth, after all, always has a way of catching up with you. And this time, Noah was ready to make sure it caught up with Claire once and for all. This narrative focuses on Noah's internal struggle with the decision to expose Claire, weighing his desire for justice against the consequences of such an act. It highlights his complicated emotions and the deep connections between the characters.